Sup guys, Hero Vortex here, and as you already know, Deltarune Chapter 5 was released last month, and if it had no lore drops, the end of the Shadow Crystal and Egg routes respectively, or at least the final requirements for them to be completed, and of course a new cast of lovable characters who will appear on my Twitter feed for a while before Chapter 6 and 7 drops. I understand that this chapter had mixed opinions when it came to the story and lore aspects. Thank God I avoided spoilers for 2 weeks before playing it so that I couldn't see people online whine about the game for not having Roaring Knight say, "My full name is December Roaring Knight Holiday." Unfortunately, I did see people hate on Pink for a bit, which is sad since it's still a memorable boss fight. I understand that she's not as lore heavy or story relevant as the other shadow bosses, but hey, we need a fun lighted shadow boss to end off the Shadow Crystal plotline. It's not like we needed her to drop some insane friend lore for her to be interesting. Chris, is your hand okay? It looks like you've got a cat bite, Mio. Cats can be nasty creatures, can't they, Mio? I once met someone who really liked cats, Mio. They liked cats so much they owned a whole hunting pack of them, Mio. Of course, cats are fickle creatures but are very good at finding protein. Chris, if you have any protein, you must keep it hidden and never let anyone see it. The cats are not too smart, but once they find a target, they won't stop chasing it until they get bored. And when they find you, they bite very, very hard. Some people will do anything to get away from them, even change their appearance or go into hiding. Oh, Chris, it's terrible, Mio. It's terrible. Please be careful, Chris. Promise? Huh? Why am I trembling? Was my body saying some things? Hey, don't have any conversations without me. Communication is key, right, buddy? Buddy? Okay. ERAM, the weird blob that we fight at the end of the optional side quest in Chapter 3 known as the Sword Route. They reside in an 8-bit replica of the shelter that exists in the Light World. But I'm pretty sure you probably know that since you're watching this video and you're probably as Delta-rotted as I am. So I probably don't need to explain that to you. But you must be wondering why I think that whatever the hell John Mental is the Roaring Knight, or at least partially the Knight. Well, I think that Pink just helped us figure out who the Knight is. But it's not only because of her new dialogue, but rather because of everything that happens before, during and after her fight that connects her to her favorite shadowy accessory. I know this might sound wild, trust me, I thought this wouldn't make sense at first. Because I randomly had this thought when I was busy thinking about what my next video should be. And that thought was just a joke in my head where I was like, well, it's funny that Deltarune has 2 optional bosses that throw bombs at you and laugh every time they finish their attacks. And that's when it hit me. Ow. But that's also when I came to the conclusion, maybe there's more to this connection than just being a mere coincidence. And so that's why I decided to make this theory, to not only prove to you that ERAM is not only the Knight, but I can also explain how Des can still play the role as the Knight with ERAM, and that Pink gives us enough evidence about what the real ERAM is like. So let's get started. So to prove to you that Pink and ERAM have a lot of similarities between them, the first obvious similarity to them is the fact that both Pink and ERAM use bomb-based attacks that explode in a plus shape. It's also important that I mention this now since I remember that Spamton Neo also uses bomb attacks that explode this way, which of course could just be a reference to Metaton EX. But considering the fact that Spamton also might know this mysterious Catmaster that Pink's body for some reason also knows about, I'm not going to talk about Spamton as much in this video unless it specifically involves him and it helps in what I'm trying to prove. So let's move on. The second similarity between them is the fact that they both laugh at their opponents after they're done with certain attack patterns. I know that characters laughing at Chris, us, and the rest of the fun gang isn't anything new, but it is still weird that they both only do it after finishing the attacks. It makes me think that this is a clue of some kind, but if that's not enough to convince you, then this one might. My third piece of evidence is the fact that they both attack you using cats. Pink uses these weird, derpy cat heads and bombs to attack you. Meanwhile, ERAM uses the friend lanes to attack you in that fight. And since I already said that I think ERAM is the Knight in some way, the thing that connects these two is the fact that both the Roaring Knight and Pink are the only Shadow Crystal bosses that don't do a psych out moment like how these three do in their fights.
Bye-bye.
Well, that's all the proof that connects these two together. Sure, there are also other things that I could have used to tie these two together, like the fact that they're both connected to the Shadow Crystal quest, but I feel like these other pieces of evidence that I showed you feels like enough. Now that we're done connecting ERAM to Pink, let's connect the Knight to ERAM so that we can finally begin the Fury. There's not that much connections between the Knight and ERAM, but despite that, I still feel like the evidence that connects them still feels like enough to prove that they're still the same person, or at least are similar to each other. First of all, they're both connected to the Shadow Crystal quest line, with ERAM giving you the Shadow Mantle after you beat them, which makes the Knight fight easier by decreasing the damage of Star and Dark Elemental attacks, which the Knight uses in that fight, and of course the Knight is the Shadow Crystal boss of the chapter, so no need for an explanation there. Second, they both have a connection to the shelter since you fight ERAM in an 8-bit version of the shelter, and the Knight's base of operations seems to be the shelter, since that's where they take both Undyne and Asgore in chapters 3 and 5. Third, they both have a connection to Gaster in the number 6. ERAM's attack stat is always Chris's max HP divided by 6, and the Shadow Mantle reduces Star and Dark magic by 66%. The Knight has holes in their hands that seem very similar to how the Mystery Man has holes in their hands. As I mentioned earlier, they both reside in the shelter that plays a song that plays in the Entry 17 room in Undertale called Smile.ogg, but slowed down by 666%. The Knight fight is the only time that Gaster or the voice gets involved in a fight where he gives us a temporary save that takes us to the beginning of the fight when we lose to them. And finally, the Knight's laugh is very similar to Friend's laugh. As we already know, ERAM uses friends in his fight, and Pink's body confirms that there's more than one friend, and that they have a master that orders them around. And we have at least seen one friend in every chapter so far except for chapter 1. Now that we have a connection between these three characters, I think that it's time to get to the Fury part and explain why these three characters are connected to each other. It has been confirmed in Deltarune that Chris and Katy used to do demon summoning rituals with each other when they were younger, and I think it maybe have worked already, because I believe that demon that Chris summoned was ERAM. And after ERAM was summoned, they sent out a hunting pack on Chris and their friends. Katy and the others managed to escape from them, but Chris and Des were left behind to deal with the cats and their master. But the demon's power was limited. They needed help with carrying out their destruction and chaos. When they saw the young deer defending the human child with all her might, they came up with the idea of using the girl's body to begin their plans. So they possessed her wounded body and took control of her body while keeping her alive, which explains why the knight acts and looks like a zombie in some of the sprites and animations. They look at the human child, telling them that if they want to see their friend again, they have to follow their orders and fulfill the prophecy by acting as its hero, while they act as the villain. Yes, I believe the knight is being puppeteered by ERAM in the same way that we control Chris. And if you think this sounds crazy, well, don't worry, I can explain why I think this might be the case. First, it could explain why Chris and the Knight share similar animations with each other, since they're both quote-unquote playable characters of each faction. And two, Chris probably looked up to this a lot and mimicked her behavior to the point where they even mimicked the poses that ERAM forces her to do. Two, the game heavily implies that we're the angel of the prophecy, and what could the enemy of an angel be? A demon. And since both ERAM and the Knight are both tied to the number 6, which is basically the demon number in Christianity, I wouldn't be surprised that ERAM is a demon. Third, the friends Knight and ERAM for some reason are connected to characters who are parallels to Chris and us. Spamton is a parallel to Chris since he doesn't want to be bound by strings similar to how Chris doesn't like having to be controlled by us. And Spamton is unable to move the Neo body when his strings are cut out. And considering the fact that Chris gets hurt when they put us back inside of them after they attack us, and our body becomes weak and withered when they remove us from our body for a long time, it's clear to see that without us, Chris will die, and that's why they feel scared after they see Spamton Neo in the normal route not move. Meanwhile, Pink shows both sides of her dynamic with Chris, but with a happier ending by having Pink and Buddy come to an agreement to allow each other to do what they want while respecting each other's autonomy, showing how we and Chris can be friends and how we can work together while respecting each other's choices. Fourth, ERAM's name is Mare backwards, which is just a suffix of the word nightmare, which you can make by putting the words night and mare together. Not only that, the Roaring is described as a nightmare by Rousey during Chapter 2, and the Titan spawn and Titans are the embodiment of fear and darkness. So it wouldn't be weird for the main villain of the game to be associated with nightmares, especially since ERAM hides in a video game that is heavily inspired by The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening. A game I'm currently playing in my free time at the time of writing this, not because I wanted to find some clues to Deltarune's ending, but rather because I recently got into the Zelda franchise and wanted to play all the Game Boy Color games. But anyway, back to what I was talking about. The plot of Link's Awakening revolves around Link being washed up on a mysterious island called Ko Island after a powerful storm caused him to get shipwrecked. And in order for him to leave the island, Link has to collect 8 instruments from 8 different dungeons to wake up the windfish to fly him back home. But the thing that I want to focus the most on in this video is the fact that the bosses who have each of the 8 instruments are called nightmares. Interesting. Very, very interesting. And the final clue to prove that ERAM is possessing death and using her body to fulfill the prophecy is the fact that the knight could fill a similar role to Flowey in Undertale, where they could be a peril to the player. Since Flowey basically much did everything in the underground in a peaceful way until he got curious about what would happen if he killed everyone, kind of like how a player who finished the pacifist route would get curious about the genocide route. So maybe the knight could mimic our dynamic with Chris in Deltarune, where they basically treat their body like it's their own instead of treating it like its own person. Just like how a new player would assume that Chris is basically them until they show us that they are their own person. So basically I think ERAM and Des are basically going to be a sadder and darker version of Maddie and Mew Mew's relationship. It would explain why the lyrics of Raise Up Your Bed talks about a demon heart while talking about a heart that will guide us the way. Because the demon heart is ERAM while the heart will shine us the way is us. Not to mention, this theory could explain the one flaw of Death Knight, which despite being a Death Knighter, I've always had a problem with, is how can Death be the knight and also the person in the code at the same time? For those who don't know, every time a new chapter of Deltarune is released, the code gets a bunch of unused text screens that are literally labeled as unused in full caps. Who seems to be confused where they are? Many people have theorized that this person is this since they remember things like watching TV and eating breakfast, implying that they're reminiscing about their childhood, and also because they say don't forget in chapter 5, which is heavily implied to be Des's motif, along with Lost Girl. Which makes sense, but she's also implied to be the knight because of them having a sword that looks like a bat when they pull it out of their body during their fight. They have Endless, and there's a part in the battlefield Black Knife that sounds like Lost Girl, among a lot of other things that I won't go through since there's a lot of videos which go more in depth about December being the knight, so watch those instead after this video. But yeah, she can be lost in the code and be the main villain of the game at the same time, right? But if ERAM is controlling Bess's body, then I think that she's still the knight, but not in the way that we think, since it's her body which is the knight, and her mind, or rather her soul, is the demon heart, aka the Catmaster ERAM, while her actual soul is trapped in the code, thus allowing both theories to be true and make sense, while making sense in the game's themes and story. Well, yeah, that is the end of Catmaster Theory. I kind of left off a lot of things, and I, not gonna lie, kind of felt like the theory is a bit rushed, but I think, because I just kind of wanted a shorter video since I did do 2 long videos before, with like FNF before this video, and I kind of wanted to take a break from like longer videos, but if it was like too rushed, let me know in the comments, and you can also add like other evidence to prove. Heck, you can even make like maybe your own like theory about ERAM and possessing this video if you want to, and you can just use some of the clues or also expand on them if you want to. But please, like I said in the beginning of like what the warning said at the beginning of the video, please do not harass anyone for their beliefs in the night theories, and please don't crucify me in the comments as well, or also on like other platforms like Instagram, Twitter, or TikTok, because I know that night theories tend to get a little heated in the fan base since we're still not sure who they are, and Chapter 5 didn't really give us that much evidence about who the knight's identity. I think it did narrow it down, because I think because of course Asgard's not the knight since he's clearly oblivious. I think the only knight candidates are still standing is Carol, December, Rudy, and of course the guy with the most evidence, Papyrus. Yeah. So yeah, there's still a chance that, you know, one of those could be the knight. I wouldn't be surprised if it's Papyrus Knight, since Chapter 6 might be way of years. Obviously, I'm just joking, but leave a like if you enjoyed. Comment what you think could make this theory better, or also other evidence to support it. Also like peacefully comment on what do you think makes sense for the game to do for this whole possession night theory, or also provide evidence for other night theories. But just please keep it civil as always. Of course, make sure to follow me on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. I don't really post that much. It's usually just stuff related to the channel, but I sometimes, do random stuff, sometimes like repost stuff, or also post just random memes, or just reply to other people. But if you just want to chat to me, you can probably also just find me on those sites. You can also not subscribe, follow my thumbnail artist Jameson on TikTok, on TikTok, Instagram, and also Twitter. They're good, and also and he's also working on an FNF mod if you're curious. It's called FNF Reboot. You can also you can join in if you want to help out with the team as well. I was currently working on a demo. But yeah, I guess that's all I have to say. Though the chance of this video, which I say are likely to happening, probably like 20%. Even though I feel confident in this video, I highly doubt it'll happen. Because the thing when I make theories for like Deltarune or just anything, I always just keep low expectations so that I don't disappoint myself. Because I ever saw lots of like people when they're like thinking that maybe there'll be Friend or Sans in Deltarune Chapter 5. But I just went with the silly option of Papyrus because I just felt like, Deltarune Chapter 5 Secret Boss won't probably be that serious. And also because I knew that I was probably gonna get it wrong. But yeah, I was technically right about a Lightner fighting us. fighting us, and the fact that the fight is gonna be less serious. So technically, I was kind of right there. So I mean, who knows? Maybe I might get some of this right. But yeah, that's all to say. Anyway, later, nerds.